Greetings, beloved, and welcome to Poets Corner here on the campus of Scarrett Bennett Center. You have arrived online or in person in the Harambee Auditorium on this campus. It is a historic place, and it is a gift and a grace to us to have with us Franchesa. It's Kirkpatrick, right?
Yes, it's
I always test my name
Kirkpatrick.
sayings because you never know. And it's a blessing to be able to be called by name, right? So we're here and we are blessed to have her with us. And as you join us through this journey, note that there is a benefit to being on purpose because it is all about the community and the connection, because we at Scarrett Bennett are a place where individuals and groups can engage each other to achieve a more just world. And this is part of that work. So thank you so much. And I'm going to just let you have at it and offer your words and wisdom and joy and all that you bring in your poetry. Thank you, love.
So, hello everyone. I am so proud to have people here from all parts of my life. And that brings me to why I named my first book, I Love Places and People's Faces. Because traveling and also being a disabled person now has been, hard, but being able to travel and see the world and see it through other people's eyes, it just makes me so happy. And when I think about it, I think about how we all come together to listen to stories, poetry, words, love. All of us come from love. So I have my first story of when I was born in Kentucky. So we have a lot of things that happen, and people love this one because I can put on a real Southern accent from my family members, and so I'll read a couple to you in that dialect. I took off my hat. Just look at my hair. Done ran my pantyhose in 2 places on that brick wall over there. Scuffed up my pocketbook. Mama calls me a hot mess on a Sunday morning. Been out trolloping all Saturday night. Get to the breakfast table. Gravy's getting cold. Oh, law, Grandma done burnt them biscuits again. Guess it's oats today. My poor stomach will be a growling. The preacher hates that sound. Every time he hears a growl, he goes into a sermon, yells out how Jesus brought his disciples together to feed the fish to the multitudes. I'm a Southern defect. My whole family raises their hands an unspoken prayer request every Sunday morning. Southern defects can't wait till Monday morning to start all over again. Thank you. This is a great-grandfather. My great-grandfather, John Tyler Wolfe, moved from Kentucky and became the judge of Arkansas. He got bit by a tick and caught Rocky Mountain spotted fever, causing him to go blind. His son, Henry Clay Wolfe, moved him back to his small Kentucky town. John Tyler loved to shop. So often those vendors took advantage of him. Because he was blind, Henry Clay had an idea. His father got special made money, kind of like Monopoly money people use in a game. It was by no means counterfeit because it was being paid back in real money by Henry Clay to merchants who accepted it. I heard about this growing up, so I called it clay money. I thought it was pretty smart for a guy who only had a 3rd grade education. I wonder how my great-grandfather spent his clay play money. Sometimes we listen to our grandparents when they talk to us, and when we grow up, they don't even understand a word we're saying, they'll tell you. But this one was one about a grandma, and she had a rocking chair, and I love rocking chairs. I don't know if you guys love your rockers if you're out here, but that's what we love. Grandma's rocking chair. The earliest memories I had are of my grandma's rocking chair. Her grandfather built it for her, and it sits by the TV in the living room to rock the grandchildren in. Back then, they didn't have much, and the grandchildren got an apple or an orange or a paper bag at church. That was all they got. Kids these days just want all the electronic toys, laptops, cell phones, things like that. They'll throw a fit if they can't find their favorite toy. It's a video game. My grandma had a small collection of books and a Bible to read. Now we have a worldwide web of books. When I was little, my tummy hurt, and they would ask me, "Come on, sit in the rocking chair," Granny would say. She'd just start rocking. That rocking chair would rock me to sleep with that hot water bottle on my belly. Wintertime, we covered up with quilts and ate snacks by the fire. Now, there's a fireplace in our TV screen. Grandma once told me a story about this rocking chair. Her grandfather's grandmother sat down in the rocking chair, and one dark winter day, to warm up by the fire, everybody was going out sleigh riding into the shop. She seemed so peaceful that day and happy when they left, sitting there rocking in the chair. When the family returned, the chair was still rocking, but my great-grandmother was gone. She must have died before they all got home, but there was a smile on her face. If only we all could go so peacefully in our favorite rocking chair. My mother's last question. Where's my father? Born to a single mother in the 1940s, I slept in her bed throughout school. Where's my father? Memories of grandfather, fishing at the pond, a big smile across his face. Grandma brushing my hair, long blonde curls, humming Amazing Grace. Where's my father? Thought the best thing to do was marry. Turns out I found a cruel, controlling, evil man. Where's my father? One day the evil man died of cancer. I thought I was free. Little did I know that cancer was hiding inside of me. Where's my father? I knew the cancer would grow and grow. While I'm searching for my father, I am dying to know. Where's my father? Last thing my mother said before she passed was, make sure to get your poetry done, because I know that's something you're enjoying right now and something that's going to get you through. And it sure has, because during the pandemic we had a lot of things to read. So there's also a thought about how I was a movie extra and TV extra. So I wrote this one in that vein because that was something else I really enjoyed doing. Early in the morning, we'd line up for paperwork. Someone at the desk asked us our names and IDs. We chose to sit next to our friends at tables and chairs. We were crunched together so tight, we catch glimpses of actors on the set. The stars of the show are on stage. We stand up, and our feet hurt. Those boots were not even in the shot. I line up at the porta potties. Our bladders are about to burst. People around us are smoking up the outside air, and we called to eat at the craft food tables. We make funny shapes with our snacks. We change our outfits for a new scene. Wardrobe checks our clothes and makeup. We are filming another episode. There's no talking, because this is an important take. Finally, we wrap up and say goodbye We line up to get our pink call sheets for pay. We drive home wondering where the sun went. On set is a dark all day. We spend so many hours filming on the sound stages. We are extras on a television show. People ask, when will I see you on TV? Well, here I am today. I'm concerned about how our world is as well. So I had some chances to be online and become, I would say, more global, if you will. We made some connections. Sometimes we watch movies together. Sometimes we do poetry together. But I've been touched by people all over the world. And I've even went to visit some of those people. So if you're out there and you're watching, thank you for your hospitality. And thank you for always including me in this world travel of poetry. It's been wonderful. I'm a member of the Prodigal Poets, which will be playing here next month. But I'm Catwoman with them. So we say, go poet, and the people say, flow it. So I'll try it out here. Go poet. Flow it. Thank you. So here's my things on how the environment affects my poetry and what I think about when I'm writing. I came from this kind of transitions because I came from a family with the last name Wolf, which again, is like kind of complicated, but this is why I'm so interested in wolves probably, but I've also probably I've been to a lot of wolf sanctuaries, and I've traveled to see a lot of these precious animals, and I've wanted so much for people to realize what's going on. And our environment is not so good for the animals. We've got to all do something and try to help change. So wolves, one of our most precious animals, were once in danger of going extinct. We all heard stories growing up about the big bad wolf and Little Red Riding Hood and the three little pigs. All of these narratives point to something bad about wolves. What does the environment say about wolves? In Yellowstone, for example, the elk population grew too great without wolves. Elk ate all the willow trees in the park. Since the reintroduction of wolves in the park, wolves now eat the elk, and this creates a healthier ecosystem. Balance is needed to protect nature. No matter where in the world wolves were reintroduced, they seem to help. Beavers and other animals have made a comeback due to the wolves. Ranchers and hunters were under the wrong beliefs, killing beautiful wolves that only were helping control our environment. Wolf packs have integral roles in nature. Despite their comeback, wolves need our support more than ever to tell a better story that will keep our wolves part of the environment. And I colored when I was at home too. So in my thing, you can kind of see some of the things that I've done artwork with in the book as well. So kind of get an idea of some of the things that I do on the side of that. There's a lot of things going on in our global society. I had a chance to send some of my global poetry actually to Australia. So that was really a proud moment when your poetry's picked to be in something that's, coming from Australia. Because I'd always, that's one of the places actually we haven't traveled yet, but we have always thought about, but we've had people from our house from there in many of those. And anyway, so this is from some of the things that I sent over there. I'll read two selections from that. Global fears last for years. Global fears last for years. Mother Earth sheds tears. Flooding around the globe. Global fears last for years. Mother Earth cheers. Healing pollution with time. Global fears last for years. Mother Earth is pleased. Seasons bring bounty for people. Global fears last for years. Mother Earth has to sleep. Global fears, people start to weep. Global fears last for years. Mother Earth hears. We stand together even when far apart. Global years overcome fears. Mother Earth rings balance is restored. A global state of mind. Look at the conveniences that we have. Our great-grandparents never had. Global. The time before Walmart and the five and dimes were full of locally made products. Not global. Most places, we didn't have choices. We didn't have brands. Who made that? Not global. Now food on our table and the clothes on our backs, laptops, phones, computers, all made elsewhere. Global. The list is endless. Global clubs, meeting, churches, music, faces from distant lands, car parts, machine parts, clothes, all globally made under cheap labor in crowded places around the world. Trillions of paper dollars made by millionaires and billionaires. Well, we cry for global relief. Humans living in a global situation, under stress, only one solution I can find. Peace on earth must be a global state of mind. One place that I will always hold dear was the place where we found some of our freedoms, because we were traveling around California and I'd always took a lot of things way seriously, like things that I had to do. But when I went out to the Redwoods, I really realized that there's a lot of things that we can still do, and art that we can hold close to our heart. So the Redwoods will always call me. And here's my take on the Redwoods. I love those redwoods out in California. They make me feel so small, like giants in the forest towering over me. The redwood trees give me a dose of courage, holding my smile as I walk through those huge roots that once sunk deep into the earth. Fallen trees surround me. Others have the sky. Shining lines, highlighting pine cones, twisted shaped in the path where I walk. Even though I am so small, I have a peaceful feeling among the redwoods. This is where I love to spend my time. In a nearby town, people have carved a whole tree into a church. Me, I like to leave them free to grow. This one is more about also the culture of the cat, where I decided there was something about me that was kind of more leaning toward cats. I've bottle fed cats, I've rescued cats and things like that, but this is what I asked when we were traveling in Delphi, Greece. The oracle told me, Delphi, Greece, on top of a mountain, is where the mythical oracle lives. I asked the oracle the age-old question, who am I really? I look down and see a cat. It leaps up into my arms. Meow, meow. It purrs, nuzzles against me, and smiles up at me. Now I know what I must do. Take care of cats. Meow, meow. And show the world love. said, just some of these animals that come into your life, they really help you learn things. And some of them live a long time. Some of them may not live as long, but even special needs animals need your care. So remember that. Even if you see an animal that's not so, well off, you might be able to help it for a minute. Just do that, because that's what you do to show other creatures in the world love. This is my labor of love. I've been making handmade books, and I'll just read a couple of each out of these, and then the next, and I'll explain some of the stories about. I write a lot, but some of these things called Franchesa's Poetry Jewels, they are from the innards of my writings. When I have a poem that I feel like it probably has a good reflection on it, I go ahead and stick it down in notes in a smaller form, and that's why they're called poetry jewels, because when you look in this book, you'll see a small piece of it, but then you have to go out and find the poem. So I have one called Birdhouse. So it says, what if a bird built a house for us? Would we feel safe? We change our outfits for a new scene. Wardrobe checks our clothes and makeup. We are filming another episode. So that was from We Are Extras, which was an example that I read a little bit earlier. I sail up on an Irish sea, and there is no other life for me, from I sail up on an Irish sea. I know fall is coming when leaves turn the colors of rainbows in fall time. This place we went out in California had this thing called a light ship, New Mexico, but I go to different places all the time, so you never know where it's going to end up, this particular art piece. But this one was from New Mexico. There was this light ship called Willa, and you laid inside of it. It was a camper, and you looked through all these little jewels that the lady had drilled into the camper, and the sun shined through. So this was her haiku for her, and I actually got to give it to the artist. Light ship day, I lay in the Harwood Gallery camper in sunlight and cloud. So that was one of the haikus that I came up with laying inside there. And I have one called Imagine Love that a lot of people really love, but this was one of my favorite pieces from I imagine love grows like a breath. Imagine me holding you with love. Our love is not imaginary. That's what I think about all the time, is how much people need that love. People need that every day. And we are here to show that, because, without it, kind of makes things a little difficult. I have one called AI, which is about little robots. And where do we stand in this AI world? Can our bodies remain historic vessels? That is something I also did a movie with, and it brought out some of the things that I also love to do, is to help other people with their movies. And I have someone representing here today from the Women in Film, and another person from my movie club. So I've got the double movie people here, and the music people, and the teachers of mine that helped me, gather my mind together to be able to do stuff like this. I guess a lot of people too may have looked up a little bit to Ruth Bader Ginsburg and some aspects of her being a strong woman. That was what I looked up to her for. I will say, because it's another whole poem, but this one is a piece of it. It says, I will say I am ruthless only because there will be no more of her words. Her love for us and our love for her will never be less. And that's in Ruthless. And every year, just about, not maybe every year, but most of the years, I have a friend who does, there's holiday trees, and his name is Peter Herka, and he lives in East Nashville, but he has a holiday tree, and we get to throw different things into that Christmas tree thing. And we all stand around, and when I was coming up with a poem, this is part of one that we do. Focus on what you want to bring into the light. Leave the darkness on bits of paper burning into the night. So that was another good one that we can do, as far as leaving some of our bad memories behind. We can all take our bad memories and put them into a good place to help others in life. Now, the last few weeks I've been working, or I guess a little bit, I've been working on these books. These always have sort of been in me, but I have to have time to actually, from traveling, to sit down and think about what I want to put inside. And mermaids have been one thing that has touched me in life, where I have thought of magic, and that's pretty much, if people know me, they know I'm all about loving magic too, or being more childlike. I don't know, I've always had this childlike heart, and so I make these for adults and kids and anybody who wants to read to someone, because they're so simple, because it doesn't take long to help someone or sit down and read them a little something, especially people with memory issues or anybody who needs that kind of thing. My first thing in the mermaids book is called sunbathing. Mermaids love sunbathing. They lay on rocks. They giggle and watch those tails wiggle in the sun. The mermaid sun is pure happiness. The rays of sun bring joy to the heart. And coral, I'm sure anybody even reading papers or whatever has heard about our coral reefs are dying. So coral reefs have been called the rainforest of the sea. They are the ecosystems vital to the mermaid life. They are fragile environments that have been in decline for many years because of some of the global warming in the oceans. Humans and mermaids must work together to do all they can to protect the world's coral gardens. And I was touched by this story. I actually found a mermaid cat. And you can find it online too, because I put it in there. It's at Sally Mermaid Cat on the Daily Pause. Mermaid cats. Mermaid cats no longer use their legs. They were born with. They are an inspirational story. And I encourage you to, mermaid cats are brave enough to try to swim in an ocean. So I encourage you to look up the real story about the mermaid cats that are coming out, because people are adopting cats that may not be able to use their back legs, and they can dress them up however in costumes and things like that, and still get really close to them, love them, and still have a place for them in their heart and homes. Mermaid tales. Mermaid tales come from many sources. One is from Syria around 1000 BC. It tells of a goddess, our goddess, who dove into the lake and tried to change shape. Her bottom half became a fish and her top half remained human. She just wasn't allowed to give up her beautiful face. Mermaids are both portions of good and disaster. They are placed as figureheads on ships to charm the ocean, and to touch a mermaid is to say you've healed some wounds. A mermaid's kiss protects sailors from drowning. So there's lots of things. And then in this book too, I've decided that some kids also like feeling, or maybe even adults too, older adults, like you can feel the fins. It says feel here, so you can feel like it might be to touch a fish or a mermaid. And that, there's a lot of things in there. to talk about. But I also have then, because of that one, I had thought about fairy tales, because when I was little, that's what, I learned to read from. I remember sitting down with grandparents, and sometimes they would have a book of different tales, like golden books and fairy tales. So I thought, this is a pretty cool thing. So I'll just read a couple from here, and then I'll take some questions. Fairy forest. Welcome to the fairy forest, where it is always twilight. Some people think fairies are fireflies. I like seeing castles in Scotland. On the Isle of Skye, where fairies have flown their flag, magical memories are made in the fairy forest. Thank you. Lucky charm. If you're lucky, you might hold a magic charm. Charms come in all shapes and sizes and colors. Some people keep fairies as lucky charms, and others keep pixies. Shamrocks are natural magic charms found in clover patches. Stardust. Fairies love stardust. Sometimes they sprinkle it when they cast the little magic spells that they do. Stardust can grant wishes, and some say that it can help the seasons change. So keep a little stardust around to sprinkle on you when you wish upon a star. Yeah, I love it. And okay, so here, the reason I really love the Scarrett Bennett Center, I'll mention, is because there's a labyrinth right out there. And this is where a lot of people find some spiritual growth and all over the world. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Fairy labyrinth. Many of us have seen fairy labyrinths in films. The oldest known labyrinth was built on the island of Crete by Daedalus, a Greek inventor who is an architect and sculptor. King Minos used it to trap the half-man, half-bull creature called Minotaur. You can take a spiritual walk around many labyrinths around the world. One of these kinds of labyrinths you can find here right in Nashville, Tennessee at the Scarrett Bennett Center. So please go and do that someday if you haven't had a chance to ever do it, when the weather's better and you can get out there and do that. And then I added some names of fairy girls and fairy boys, because I think that's just a fun thing for people to think, what would their names be? Now, this one's I really got a laugh out of, but trolls. Trolls stay far away from, fairies are the ones who want to stay far away from trolls. Trolls wait for fairies in caves, under bridges, and try to lure them into their lair. And then today, we find trolls on the internet. They always are making rude comments, and they take it from fairies. Stay away from those trolls too. Let's get your magic wand out there. And fairy wishes. Fairy wishes often grant our wishes in threes. There is a stone at Bew Castle in Cumbria, England, where you can whisper your secret wishes, and fairies will help you make them come true. Fairies are seen around Christmas, so make your fairy wishes now. And they contain, okay. So that concludes a little bit of what I was going to show and tell. However, I want to turn this over to you guys. Some of you guys might have some questions for me. If you do, we can open that up to the mic. She's got the mic over here, so if anybody, raise your hand if you have any questions about stuff I do or want to hear any more stories about things that go bump in Franchesa's life or whatever you want to say. Thank you.
That was lovely.
Thank you.
It may be that the online people.
And yeah, so okay, yes, let's pray it's more, yeah.
I did want to ask, what was the first poem you ever wrote?
One of the first poems I remember ever writing, I think, was probably about a dog or something like that. Because when I grew up in the country, we had a lot of animals and things like that, and I was just always feeling it. Poetry's been in my DNA. I've seen the DNA history, and I couldn't believe it myself when I looked. I was like, wow, this is so awesome. So I must have felt it as a kid. And then throughout school too, I was trying to write little poems all through school. So sometimes I probably did more poems than homework, and I didn't mean for that to happen, but it fascinated me.
Hey, I really did like each one of those. They have power and simplicity, I would say, your poems, because they're very concise, direct, but there's so much meaning in them. And as an English teacher, we talk about poems. We talk about how they work with the meter, the rhythm, the cadence. But I'll be honest, I still don't understand this magic that is poetry and how it works. Specifically, how you're able to take very simple words, very simple phrases, and pause at the end of each one and then indicate so much meaning. Can you describe how you do that? I know that almost seems impossible, but as a non-poet to a poet, how that works.
I love words. Words for me are something that's very important. When I was growing up, I was told to be quiet a lot. I mean, I wasn't a really talker. I was pretty much more of what the kids would call a shy person, or somebody who, couldn't say what they, because everybody else was talking over me. So I had a lot of time to think. But yet, I think it's a language. I think what you're talking about is just like a mathematical language. Poetry is a language of rhythm. And it's also something that when it's in tuned with you, sometimes people kind of rush a little bit too hard to try to have something to say or write, or try to say a little too much about something. But if you're more concise and direct about stuff that you can teach someone, and I've always wanted to teach others how, things that maybe they didn't know. It tickles me. Like, it's magic when you bring it out in somebody's mind, like, I never thought of that before. And then they can go back and look at it. And it's like, I can look that up now because we now have this worldwide, there's that little gem. Now I can take it and I can put it on a computer, and I could look at all these different things that it might be. So in today's world, you've got to have that for kids because they can't come to a dead end. We used to have the Encyclopedia Britannica. That was the one that was our go-to because that's all we had. And I love that too, but I would just sit there and think, is there more? And now we know there's more. So if you can figure out things that are actually happening in today's world and come from that point, and then think about how can I say this in a brief way, especially for people who have more disabilities. And also, I know that I worked with a lot of people with autism and things like that, and they like it to be more direct because they are like, all this sitting here, what is this all going to say? But if you say it in smaller form and you say it in things they can look up, then they have it right there in front of them.
Hi, Francesca. I loved your poems about your grandparents and that you were able to say the dialect so perfectly. Right on. My question to you is, you had the music of, sometimes you'll hear a Southern dialect and people will say, well, they not be very smart. But you got the rhythm of it, so it's very clear that this is a beautiful dialect to be repeated on. My question to you is, do you really expect your poems to be heard or read?
I think they're going to be heard more, especially that particular. I branch off into many different types, like you see, because I have had so many things. Like, I love so many different subjects, and when I go into the Southern stuff, I know that's going to have to be recorded because that's going to be, something that people want to listen to. And visually, I want stuff to be tactical too. So it's kind of like you can maybe hear some of this stuff that's one genre, And then you might actually touch and feel the art through the poetry as well. So, but that's pretty much how you want to say. I want to say that I'm very thankful to have had the Southern upbringing that I did have, and to be able to listen, like I said, listen so closely and respect those people.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I have loved this today. It's been so delightful. And just hearing where you put the gaps in there, somebody has already mentioned that, but I like that a lot because it gives me a time to digest what you just said and create my own fantasy. I'm a grandmother and I have 2 grandchildren. And one of my concerns is we have this art that is a way of communication, and I feel like we're missing it because I feel like they just came to visit recently, and they were on the iPads all the time. And I remember talking to my grandson, and I said, Gavin, I want you to do something different. I'm not going to buy you any toys. I want you to maybe write a book or so. Oh, Mom, Pat, I'm only 6 years old. I can't do that. But he has a book now, and I just asked him 3 questions, and he has a book on Amazon now, and he sells a lot of them. The thing that I worry about is, are the children in school losing their creativity? How do you feel about that?
I feel like they are. I feel that the kids have lost a little much of that, and it's also being shut down for the last few years that we did, where we stayed at home some. I mean, not everybody did, but a lot of people did, and it was already a deficit, especially our inner city schools. I've been an inner city school teacher. I've taught lots of children, how to find the joy in reading. Maybe that was why it was also so important for me to write this way. So to keep the attention span. But what we have to do as adults is to keep feeding them what we know in a way that they can actually relate. You have to go back to the basics, like how are you relating to this, and how would this make you feel? Like if they can't get any interest in it one way, there might be another way you can learn. That's what I've always learned. It's like when you're teaching everybody's different. So you're going to have a time where that particular grandchild may not be the same as the others. And you may have a learning moment together where you can say, look, how do you see this? Do you feel it first? Or do you see it like on a computer screen because that's what you've been trained to since you were like little babies now? And if it is, then how can you help me write a program for this? And they get more interested in that because I know how to write programs. I know how to put pictures in here. And they're more into that. And whatever the subject is too. There's lots of things like specializing in subjects. Like say rugs. Somebody might like the Aladdin rug, but not everybody does. So, you kind of go for an object that person can actually come from. So take the object that people have, the favorites, let them write their own little list. And then say to them, what do you see? And then start the vocabulary. Start asking for words from them about how they feel it, see it, smell it. I mean, there's just so many things. Colors, I mean, it's all in there. And as they grow, they'll learn that skill. They just have to have someone to say, how are you learning this? And how do we put it out there for you to keep going in the direction that we see would be important for you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Along that line of questioning, what do you think right now are the biggest barriers to bringing forth our youth's creativity? And in your opinion, how might we cross those barriers?
I think the biggest challenge is getting also parental involvement and grandparent involvement and aunts and uncles, because there's a time where people used to be more like engaged with family. And we're losing it. We all know that. We're losing a lot of that, especially people come to me and say, like she was saying about a grandparent, we used to hold great respect for our grandparents and great-grandparents. Those people are either passing on or we don't get to spend that much time with them anymore. So there's also a deficit on the other side. These people who have never had grandkids in their life, they've never had parents, we've got to also help somehow structure a bridge between those people. Even if you don't have something, you may have to foster it. Like for our traveling, we did couch surfing because sometimes you need to stay with people or you know, they might need you, you might need them. So there needs to be some sort of applications built so that people can strengthen more in our communities. Sometimes people say, I don't want to get out there, I don't want to see that, or you know, it's been really hard, like I said, over the last 2 or 3 years because people didn't want to get together at all because of the things that we're told. But still, face to face, a lot of us in the poet community, we around the world got together, and I did a lot of face to face with children from around the world to keep them engaged. Keep them engaged in our poet community, keep them engaged in writing. As far as you did too, I mean, as teachers, people were there, but there's got to be a lot more little meetings, and they've got to have a lot more activity. I know when I grew up, we had all kinds of little workshops, and with my teachers back there, we had little work centers. We got to do sewing sometimes, we got to do bookmaking sometimes, we got to do decorated things and cook. And I don't know, there was just so many things. We just did every little thing, and I don't like the idea that that's leaving us because those skills are so important. You don't just go, I mean, some people do, but you know, how do you make something if you don't start somewhere? And if you never had your hands in a maker, I mean, with somebody showing you how to do a traditional thing, we were steering away from like children being their parents, but the thing was about that, when we went to teach that in other schools across like the world, we did actually some workshops, and these children thought they had to be what their grandfather, their father, their this was, and then they steered away from that, but yet we still need to steer a little bit back toward that, because who's gonna like fix our broken things? There's people who love to do that, and you're never gonna find them because they have never been taught. So when you can teach somebody something, do that. We don't want just YouTube to be our fix-all, because there's people there that don't know what they're doing, and they just show you a picture of something and you break your own things, or you can't just start from that little spot and start to fix something, and it can be disastrous. So we've got to have more of coming in again, you know, like people said, oh, how did you make that? How did you make that? So we got to have more shows or whatever. If it's a show that we need to do, fine. I mean, they're teaching kids how to build video games. We've got to teach kids how to build life. Life, arts and life, yes.
May I ask another question? You said something about grandparents, and it really hit me today. My aunt was 100, and she was buried today. And I loved listening to her stories. She would pick up people for church with a horse and just a wagon, and would take them to her church for her grandmother and grandfather. But the stories that she has, these things are priceless, and I wish more children could hear those kind of things. And I just love what you're doing, because I know you're touching children and you're touching adults. You touched me today, and I really appreciate that. But I thought Aunt Annie would love this because she was so creative. But it was years and years ago, you know, and she did all these kind of things. She was a painter, seamstress, all these things, and we're losing a lot of that story kind of thing, and it makes me sad. It really makes me. I wrote a book one time called Wearing High Heels in a Flip-Flop World, and I took her a copy, and from that day forward, she told me a story. I cried when the girls took my high heels away because I couldn't walk in them anymore. So, those are things that are remembered. And when I got her flowers for today, guess what I put in there? A high heel. Yeah. So what you're doing is so important to our world. The poet, the teaching, and all of this. I am so grateful I'm here tonight. Thank you so much.
And thank you, everybody here, and everybody can hear me. We have to be the blessing. We have to do it. We can't just say, no, I don't feel like it, even if you don't feel well. I mean, there's lots of days when it's not the perfect day to do anything, but guess what? We still have a moment. We're in the moment. We're doing it now. So.
I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the love of nature, the love of people, the love of children, the love of even us that I see in your face tonight. And it shows in your poetry. And it was such a pleasure to be your teacher when you were in high school and observe you work with children those years that you were in my child care careers class. And to see you go on and that be part of your career. And as a middle-aged woman, it's such a joy to see you doing the work that you're doing and writing about it and creating and acting and just all of that is so beautiful to me. And I'm glad that you invited us too. And we're glad to be here. Yeah. You want to say anything? I'm just glad to be here too.
I can say yes, I have two of my teachers here that actually introduced me to each other. And we had adventures, lots of travel adventures too, because my teachers were also travelers and we did lots of things. And I remember wanting to spend more time with them to learn than going out on the town with all the other kids. I just sort of had this knack. I just wanted to hear more about how I could better my future. And so that is it too. Respect your teachers. There's so many teachers here tonight. There's so many people, even if you're not a teacher by profession or you're not a something by profession, you do something well. Remember that too. Remember, maybe I don't do what this person does as well, but it takes a village, to raise a child, they say. So I want to, leave you guys with that. It's been a beautiful night to talk about how we build our village and how we are going to keep it together. We've got to keep it together. I didn't get into my isolation poems, but keeping it together, where are my pants, things like that. Those were poems that I came up with because people felt alone, and we're not alone. We have each other. Call somebody. I mean, I can't tell you how many people want to talk to me on the phone because they don't hear a voice and they want somebody to say something to them. And so I sit there with them until they don't need me to talk anymore. And you don't maybe believe this, but a lot of people, when they did call you, they meant to call you because they really needed it. So answer the phone if you can. If you're busy, please remember to take that person's name down and get back to them as soon as possible because sometimes that phone call means the world to them. Thank you.
I'm so glad we were able to do this today, to come together for Poets Corner. Thank you so much.
It's been great.
And before we go, just to dovetail off of a lot of the dialogue, and I love the dialogue. Thank you so much for participating. One thing that's coming up in September here on campus, 20th through the 23rd, is a retreat experience that might be of interest as I've been listening to what's going on here. You guys get a little bit of a sneak peek of sorts. I just sent this stuff last week to our marketing department to start getting the word out. But since you're here, for those in person or online, note that we're going to have a retreat that is modular. So you can come to one session or all the sessions or any combination that you want. And then ideally come by the end. We're going to do some performances and sharing and celebrating our creative expressions. But this retreat is called Scripture through Song, Story, Script, and Stage. we're basically going to get creative. We're going to explore writing and performing, learn some tips and tricks and skills from some professionals, engage in whether you are a lyric writing person or an instrumentalist. We've got a trombone player that's going to be in the house at one point. How do you perform and tell the story and write the story? Creative in expression in many ways. We're going to lean in on the Lenten season as far as a scriptural foundation, so that we might create things we can use in all of our atmospheres, whether you're doing some house church life or some online experiences or actually in a regular old church house. Y'all, whatever you do, wherever you are, that we might tell some good stories. And not just the biblical stories, but our own stories in the mix. So I hope you get to connect with that. It'll be on our website soon enough, so it'll be on the events calendar. You can always email me as well if you want some information on the early part of when it goes live. lfurtado@scarrettbennett.org. If you don't know how to spell that, that's L as in Linda. Furtado, F-U-R-T-A-D as in David, O @scarrettbennett.org. So I hope you get to hang out with us at some point or another. My mission is that this is deeply accessible to any and everyone. Thus, you don't have to show up for the whole thing. But also, I want folks 17 and younger to be able to come with a supervising adult without cost. And for folks 65 and older to be able to come without cost. So come, engage. I hope we all get to have a little fun creating together. All right, so thank you again. This has been another edition of Poets Corner here at Scarrett Bennett Center. I'm Reverend Linda Furtado, Director of Spirituality and Arts, and it has been a gift and a grace to me to offer you hospitality in this space. Until we meet again, thanks so much for coming.